Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is the MMA breakdown with my recap for UFC Fight Night 28, Teixeira versus Bader. Um, Quickly, I thought that the prelims were pretty awful. Some real slow fights in there. Four decisions and one finish for all the prelim fights. Main card was better, but I really only cared about the last half of the main card, the more marquee fights. But let's run through it. I'll give you my thoughts on what transpired. So the Facebook prelim card at welterweight, Shawn Spencer defeated Yuri Villafort by split decision. I picked Shawn Spencer by decision. In Yuri Villafort's last fight, Nishan Burrell was able to really nullify his jiu-jitsu attack with striking. Yuri Villafort in that fight against Burrell, he was really desperate for submissions. That seemed to be what he really wanted. In this fight, completely different game plan. He wanted to strike with Spencer. And the first round was close. I gave it to Villafort. I think he was landing a lot of knees, landing a few good shots, but Spencer was the one pressing the action. Didn't really seem to hurt Spencer. Second round, can't really remember, but the third round, Spencer really came alive. It was landing a lot more strikes, outstruck Villafort a lot on the feet, but pretty basic striking from Spencer, jab cross kind of stuff. Never really went for the kill, never seemed to really use his wrestling, and he ended up getting the split decision, which I agreed with. Shawn Spencer, both of these guys, I really don't see why they're in the UFC. Spencer got finished by Natal in his last fight, and this fight didn't seem too impressive, barely got by. Doesn't seem to mix his wrestling and striking game together well at all. Doesn't seem to have any kind of takedowns or desire to take the fight to the ground, and doesn't seem to have real knockout power in his hands, and doesn't have real dangerous combinations. But he got the win, and we'll see what he can do from here. Villafort probably gone, 2 losses in a row, and neither of his fights were really exciting. And then onto the Fox Sports 1 prelim card. Ivan George, this is at welterweight. Ivan George defeated Keith Wisniewski by unanimous decision. Keith Wisniewski was looking really good in the first 2 rounds, I thought. Used his range very well. He was real methodical, picking his shots carefully, and used that tie clinch and the knees so well. Kept throwing those knees over and over. In the second round, George had his back at one point against the fence, but did nothing. Kept going for the takedowns, and Wisniewski defended them. And then the third round, miraculously, George turned the tables on Wisniewski, and he was the one using the tie clinch and landing knees to the body, which seemed to really hurt Wisniewski. And George definitely won the third round, but I thought this was a total bullshit decision. I thought Wisniewski easily won the first and second round with his. I think he outstruck George and was really taking it to him with those knees. But they gave him George the unanimous decision. I don't see how. He even got a 30-27. Just makes no sense at all. Wisniewski was the better fighter in this fight. I definitely thought real improvement over his last fight against Josh Neer. Was that his last fight, actually? No, he lost to Chris Clements after Josh Neer. But yeah, he lost to Josh Neer and Chris Clements before this 2-fight losing streak. I thought he looked really composed in this fight, really refined his striking. Too bad the decision didn't go his way. Both of these guys, well, George, I don't see what he can do against even mid-level welterweights, and I didn't think he even won this fight, so I don't really think he's UFC caliber. And Wisniewski, he had a real exciting fight against Neer, and I don't know why the decision didn't go his way, but he's probably gone. 3 losses in a row in the UFC. Next up at welterweight, Elias Silverio defeated João Zeferino by unanimous decision. Just a terrible, awful, boring fight. João Zeferino did nothing but try to get the takedown. Had Silverio against the fence a lot, diving on legs, trying to get a takedown. Could do nothing. Silverio just was able to fend off the takedown, but never. That was the whole fight. They were up against the fence. Zeferino trying to get the takedown, and he couldn't. Silverio just hitting him with little shots from against the fence. But terrible fight. João Zeferino losing his last fight to Rafael Natal in a fight that also was really boring. Zeferino was also on his back a lot in this fight. And this guy's supposed to be a decorated jiu-jitsu guy. This guy did nothing off his back. He did nothing. Terrible fight. I don't think either of these guys have any place in the UFC, but Silverio got the win. I don't care. I don't want to see him fight again. And Zeferino, I think he's gone. 2 terribly boring fights in a row. But, yeah, I don't know why. I mean, well, they're in the UFC because they're Brazilian and because they need, they like to stack the prelims on these Brazil cards with local fighters, but I don't think any of these guys are any good. Either of these guys are any good. Next up at bantamweight, Lucas Martins defeated Junior Hernandez by rear naked choke. I actually didn't realize that Martins dropped 2 weight classes from lightweight, and now he's at bantamweight. He took a fight against Edson Barbosa. I can't remember if it was short notice or not. I think that was back in December, where he got finished. Barbosa's a deadly striker. And then he had to beat Jeremy Larson from The Ultimate Fighter in another fight. But this guy's a good striker, and you saw in this fight, he was totally destroying Hernandez on the feet right out of the gate real quickly. He hurt him and dropped Hernandez, and it was real interesting. Martins, he locked in the rear naked before he took the back, and then once he had the arms around the neck, he put the hooks in and finished him off. Good, violent win for him, but Junior Hernandez, who was this guy? I think Martins is going to be good at bantamweight. Who knows how far he can go. You might be able to crack into the top 10. Seems like a real good striker, but he looks good at bantamweight. And Junior Hernandez, who cares, Next up, last fight on the prelim card, Kevin Souza defeated Philippe Arantes by split decision. They were really hyping Souza up, saying he was a big prospect. I don't know anything about him, but his boxing looked really good in this fight. Landed a lot of strikes, totally outstruck Arantes, but didn't seem to hurt him seriously at any point in the fight. Arantes was able to get a few takedowns here and there, didn't do much with them, but Souza was kept a good pace through a high volume of strikes. But again, didn't seem too dangerous. Got the win. He's a guy I might have a little hope for. We'll see what he can do, but I'm not expecting big things. And Arantes, this guy's, basically been an irrelevant fighter. Hasn't put together a streak since he came into the UFC. Lost to Yuri Alcantara. Beat Antonio Carvalho in a decision. He drew with Milton Vieira. His last fight was pretty good. He was able to finish the tough finalist, Godofredo Pepe. But this fight just didn't seem inspired, didn't seem he really went too hard for the win, didn't have anything on the feet. I think they'll probably keep him around because he's Brazilian. But anyway, Souza moves on, and maybe he'll be able to get a few wins under his belt. But we'll see. Main card, definitely the pace picked up from the prelim card. A lot of finishes, only one decision on the main card, but it was a lot better than the prelim card. At flyweight, Ali Bagatanov defeated Marcos Vinicius by TKO in the third round. I actually called Bagatanov by finish. I didn't know anything about him, but just judging from Vinicius, he seems like a brawler with not much technique at all, and I thought a newcomer might be able to take this guy out because he's not really. Vinicius hasn't really proven himself in the UFC. He was on Tough Brazil 1. He beat Wagner Campos in the Tough Brazil finale at UFC 147, and then got finished by Johnny Bedford in his last fight. I don't think he had much to offer in the UFC. And Bagatanov, he looked completely outsized. This was Vinicius's first fight at flyweight, and yeah, it was really outsized. But Bagatanov rocked him early. I thought I was going to finish him in the first round, but Vinicius was able to get on top and drag the fight out a little bit, but Bagatanov ended up finishing him in the third round. I think this guy's an exciting addition to the flyweight division. Seems to have knockout power. He could fight Gaudino, Tim Elliott, anybody really at flyweight. Good one for him. Next up at middleweight, Rafael Natal defeated Thor Rowan by unanimous decision. I picked Natal. He hurt Rowan early. Got on top. Wasn't able to submit him. And then there was some real good grappling scrambles. Thor Rowan ended up on top at one point, and Natal used a beautiful it was like a Thor Rowan was in side control, and Natal used a sweep from there. It was beautiful, and it was basically like that back and forth. Natal was on top for most of the time, working for submissions. He was better than Rowan on the feet, but Thor was tough. A lot of times when he was on his back a lot, he'd reverse the position and be able to land a few strikes from top, but Natal got the decision. Natal's a skilled guy, a good guy. I think kind of the lower end of the middle tier guys, but he doesn't seem to be able to finish people. In his last fight, wasn't able to do much against Zeferino, and in this fight, almost finished Thor in a few spots, but doesn't really seem to have that natural finishing ability. But you know, he wants a top 10 guy. I don't think he's ready for that at all. He's got to start finishing these guys impressively. But Thor, he's tough. I'm sure they won't cut him. Like to see what he can do against some lower level guys, but Natal gets the win and he'll move on. I think he'll keep fighting these tough veterans, guys coming off the Tough Show or other mid-level guys. I don't think they're going to give him anything close to a top 10 guy. Next up at lightweight, Pilcher Hallman submitted Francisco Trinaldo by Kimura, round 2. Real good win for him. I didn't know anything about him. Trinaldo, I thought he'd win the fight. Picked him to win. Tough veteran who's had some really impressive fights in the UFC. Nearly beat Gleison Tebow when he fought him. Submitted him, or almost nearly submitted him with an arm triangle choke. Hurt him on the feet. And after that, he had some good finishes of Mike Rio and CJ Keith. But Ronaldo is landing a body kick early on. His kickboxing was good, landing some good strikes, and the body kicks seemed to really hurt Hallman a few times, and Hallman didn't seem to be getting anything off on his striking game. But in the second round, was able to get on top and eventually worked a Kimura, and really impressive. But Ronaldo seemed like he really faded from the first round. This guy competed at middleweight on Tough Brazil 1, and he seemed like a really big middleweight. And somehow he's able to fight at lightweight, and I think it was after he fought Gleison Tebow on Dana White's vlog. He showed him in the back throwing up, vomiting after the fight. I don't understand how he can make that cut to lightweight. I don't think it's good for him. I think that really caught up to him in this fight. You saw his cardio wane. But a good win for Hallman, getting a finish over a guy who's gotten his feet wet in the UFC. And exciting guy to keep an eye on. We'll see what he can do from here. And Ronaldo, a bad loss to a newcomer. I think they'll keep him around because he's a Brazilian guy that can put him on these Brazilian cards and usually has exciting fights. Next up, flyweight Joseph Benavidez knocked out Jussier Formiga in the first round. This is exactly how I saw this. I thought Benavidez would steamroll Formiga. Formiga got knocked out by John Dodson, and then had a win over Chris Carriasso, but it was incredibly boring. He got the takedown on Carriasso for most of the fight, and he did nothing from top, basically held position for most of the fight. He wasn't doing anything with ground and pound or anything. I just thought he had no chance of doing that to laying and praying Benavidez. But, I thought Benavidez would just tear him up on the feet. Benavidez's striking has looked really good of late. Finished Darren Uye-Noyama in his last fight. Was working real good striking to the body. And Formiga actually early on, he was countering Benavidez pretty well a few times, was able to land some counter strikes. But Benavidez found an opening and only took one combination, and he put Formiga down. Real good win for Benavidez. He'll move on. I think he does have a chance to beat Mighty Mouse in a rematch. I actually scored the first fight for him. And, excited to see him move up and fight better guys at flyweight. Real good one for Benavidez. I'm high on him. And Formiga, I don't care about him. I thought his last fight was terrible. And, just got destroyed. Next up, the co-main event, a middleweight fight. Ronaldo, Jacare Souza, TKO'd Yushin Okami in the first round. Great win for Souza. I thought he would win by TKO, but I thought it would come in the third round. I thought Okami would be able to do a lot better, hang in there. Okami, he's not a killer, he doesn't finish guys, but he's solid, he's skilled, he's been able to use his wrestling real well. But Souza had none of that. Totally outstruck Okami. Okami had nothing for him on the feet. Dropped him early and finished Okami off quick. Souza is a real contender. I put him top 3 behind Weidman. That's going to be a great fight if he can fight Weidman or if he can fight Silva, although I think he said he won't fight Silva, but Souza's great, incredible striking, and obviously really great jiu-jitsu. So this guy's real championship material. And Okami, I think that's the end of his title hopes. He's been able to beat a lot of elite guys, not very impressively, but I definitely respect his ability to win. But this might be the end for him. And then the main event, light heavyweight, Glover Teixeira TKO'd Ryan Bader in the first round. I picked Teixeira to win this fight. I thought he'd be able to do it by TKO or submission in the first or second round, but They both came. They came out. Ryan Bader was real aggressive. Came forward, very assertive. Threw a lot of heavy bombs. I think dropped Teixeira at one point, and he was going for a lot of guillotines, really using the front headlock position. He went for his signature guillotine that he submitted Matt Yushchenko with, where he had the arm trapped in against one side of the body, against the head. And he didn't lost the guillotine when he went for it on Teixeira, and then they were back on the feet, both swinging wildly. I think he dropped Teixeira again, but yeah, and Bader, it seemed for a moment there he'd be able to win. Had Teixeira backed up against the fence, was throwing heavy bombs, and Teixeira covered up, found an opening as Bader was coming in, and tagged Bader. I think it was a cross hook combination. Just totally put Bader out on the feet. He went down, followed up with a vicious ground and pound, and that was it. Good win for Teixeira. He's getting his title shot against the winner of Jones and Gustafsson. I don't think he has a chance against John. Well, I don't think he'll be able to stop the takedown against Jones or do too well in the striking department. I think his only chance would just to make it a brawl and hopefully catch John Jones with a big punch early on, just coming right at him. He obviously has good power, but he is an older guy. I don't think he's too athletic. He doesn't seem to move too fast at this point. Obviously, he's been finishing guys. I just mean, kind of the way he moves. I don't think he's athletic enough to hurt Jones, but he definitely has the power, I think. But Jones will have I think, even in the striking department, I think Jones could keep him away. But good fight. Overall, prelim card was pretty awful, and main card got better. But we got a real contender in Jacare Souza defeating he went from fighting a guy in his last fight outside the top 10 in Kamosi to beating a top 5 guy on the feet. Great performance for him. Benavidez continues his role at flyweight, and Teixeira, gets a good win. Bader isn't the biggest test at light heavyweight, but he's getting his title shot. I would have liked to see Teixeira fight another elite guy like Gustafsson first, but we'll see how Teixeira will do in a title fight. A fight against Gustafsson, if Gustafsson can somehow beat Jones, that would be real interesting, but I think that's really unlikely. Anyway, that's my recap of UFC Fight Night 28, Teixeira versus Bader. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out my recap for UFC 164. I'll be back at the end of the month with my predictions for UFC 165. Take care, guys. See you later.